Hi, I want to share with you my thoughts about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. A wealthy guy from New York accused of taking advantage, preying on vulnerable young girls, inviting them to his house for massages and for sexual activities and giving them money. Um, I can tell you that no matter how bad it is, young kids should not accept money for sex. Young kids should not get involved in sexual activities with older adults for money, because it never ends well and it's completely illegal and it traumatizes the children. I can tell you that the system is designed and it works in favor of facilitating abuse, making it possible. It even encourages it, from what I have personally experienced. And we have to encourage our kids, and we have to encourage ourselves to fight back and defend ourselves. And I can tell you, when I was an intern, I was a college student, and I was an intern at Univision, I encountered harassment from day one, and I fought back. I defended myself. I said no. When someone tried to kiss me, and I told the supervisor in charge of the project that I wasn't going to work in conditions where I was being harassed by the people that we were working with. And so I wanted them to make sure that the environment where I worked was safe. And I encountered harassment on and off during my 17-year career in television various times, and I took precautions. I would not put myself in situations, be alone with someone who I didn't feel safe with. I would call lawyers if I needed to, contact my supervisors if something was wrong in the working environment. Towards the end, it became very stressful and it became even more intense. And so I can say that when I was an intern and I was living with my parents, I didn't feel as pressured, because I could just say no and not go back to work. And I had a home. I was living at home with my parents, and I had food, and so I didn't have to worry. And so I know it's easy to say, just say no, and you don't have to do things. But you really don't have to do things, because later on in life, when I was truly vulnerable, when I was living in my sister's garage, earning zero money for 3 years, when I was being threatened with going homeless, completely homeless, I was offered by a friend to come, like from a former school friend, to come stay in a hotel with me, and he offered to pay for it. And so I took it like he was expecting something in return, and I wasn't going to do it, and I was homeless. So yes, you can say, well, it's easy for you to tell a young girl not to accept money for sex because you've never had to be in that situation. But actually I was in that situation. I was homeless. I was sleeping in my car after surviving very stressful political harassment for my career in journalism, and for fighting back against harassment, the type of harassment that is encouraged and facilitated and enabled in corporate America by the politics, by the economic system. So yes, I can tell you, as someone who was homeless, because I fought back against harassment, that you can say no. You don't have to have sex for money. You don't have to engage in those types of illegal activities. You don't have to engage in drug activities and engage in sex for money, because there are other options. There's a food card the government gives you when you don't have money to eat, and you can go to the grocery store and buy whatever you need so you don't go hungry. Homeless shelters help you, and I've heard that homeless shelters, it's very political, it's very corrupt. Maybe. I believe that. I didn't have it that rough in the homeless shelter, although I thought it was very rough, but I survived it. And they separate men from women. It's very cold to sleep in there. You sleep in bunks, and it's just very difficult environment. I never in my life thought. I didn't even go away to summer camp. I stayed home. I went to summer camp at home. I always traveled to 5-star hotels. I had never stayed at actually one vacation in Colombia, I stayed at a place that was kind of like not very nice. And this shelter was like that, but I survived it. And people tell me, well, they only help this people, that people. Well, to start with, I should not have ended up in a shelter, because I was building a company and a business that was stolen by Chelsea Clinton, and the Trumps were getting ready to steal. So it was like politicians were using it for themselves. And actually, Chelsea Clinton was able to publish, I think, a project that was worth $1 million with property stolen from me. So I should have never gone homeless. I should have had enough money to buy a big, beautiful house instead of having to end up in a shelter. So I was vulnerable. And when I went to nonprofits and charity organizations that, according to reports, Epstein supports and those people support politicians advocate for, well, I was exploited further. Instead of them helping me earn money to pay $300 a month for rent by buying my wonderful books, because I have a degree in psychology, I have 17 years of broadcast journalism experience, I was co-founder of an education segment, and I was producing educational products, top quality, probably more focused and better designed than a lot of the products that are available out there on the market. And I would encourage any expert to compare and to take a look at what I'm working on. And the organizations that could have supported me by purchasing my products to provide them to the schools or to provide them to students, or the schools, instead of the schools purchasing my products, what they did was they gave me the runaround, they data mined, they used me, and I'm not going to say they abused me because they didn't harass me themselves, but they exploited me. Not sexually exploited me, but they exploited me for my intellectual property to benefit politicians and the corrupt system. And so instead of me earning $300 a month to pay for the rent at my sister's garage, they didn't do anything. They just wasted my time and energy and effort. They didn't help me, and they're there to help vulnerable people. And I was the most vulnerable that you can be. I didn't have a job. I wasn't earning any money. I was living in a garage, and I had to ask my ex-husband to please take care of my son while but I approached these organizations even before I had to ask my ex-husband to take care of my son, because I wanted to keep him with me, living with me. So they facilitated the political and economic exploitation. So those charity organizations don't always work in favor of the vulnerable people. They actually contribute and facilitate the abuse. And I know at Univision, where I worked, I had a personal relationship with someone that didn't work at Univision, has never worked at Univision, but somehow, well, he's worked in politics and he's worked in radio, so he works in the media, but somehow they tangled our relationship into something that was supposedly related to work, which was not at all related to work. It was completely personal. Yes, I would tell him work stuff like you tell your husband work stuff, or you tell your boyfriend work stuff, or you tell your parents work stuff, or your brother, your sister. You share stuff and ideas about work. And anyway, when you work in journalism, what you do is public information. You broadcast information. So obviously it's okay to talk about it at home, to talk about it with your personal friends or the people that you're close to. And so they tried using that relationship as like, oh, it's harassment. It wasn't harassment. It was mutually consensual. It was a relationship for like 9 years, almost 10. And it had nothing to do with my job. I was already established. I had a job that I wanted. I had accomplished my dreams, and I was just waiting to see where else I could take it. And I would have probably, if I had stayed working in TV, I would have tried getting a better job in radio and have tried getting a better salary. I built my career finding opportunities and earning better money by working professionally and doing a great job. And my personal life, it's my personal life. Yeah, there's things that maybe I could have done better in relationships, and it's personal, but you live, you learn, you grow. But the bottom line, or what I wanted to talk about, is that the current system facilitates the exploitation and abuse and harassment of people, including children. And so we need to encourage children to defend themselves, fight back, tell parents to tell kids, don't accept money from strangers, don't engage in sex with strangers, don't engage in sex with each other. Abstinence is important before you turn 18 and even after 18. And then there's something controversial about my past and my family that I have to talk about, because it's something that I guess, critics can say, well, my mom got married at 15 and my dad was 28, so he was 13 years older, but she was a virgin when she got married. They didn't engage in sexual activity before getting married. And my grandparents, my grandfather, who was a dentist, they lived in a beautiful house in a small town, and he was in politics. And they encouraged my mom not to get married. She didn't need to. She had a beautiful house. She had a bright future. My grandfather wanted her to become a lawyer and to stay in school and become a lawyer, but she fell in love with my dad and she wanted to marry him. They would go on dates being chaperoned. They would never go alone. And so after like 8 months of dating, they decided to get married. And the priest wouldn't marry them because she was a minor. She was 15. She wasn't 18. She looked much more mature than what she was. She didn't look 15. She looked like she was in her 20s. I have pictures. She looked like I look now almost. And I'm in my 40s. And so they got married, and my dad was a great husband. He was a wonderful husband. My mom was an excellent mom, and she had a wonderful marriage. And so it was different. It's not like Jeffrey Epstein. My dad was not preying on my mom. My dad married my mom. They waited till marriage to become intimate. So it's different. So you cannot compare someone who's an adult and invites girls, young girls, for massages, and someone recruits them outside the school, according to reports, this is what I've been hearing, and pays them for massages and then engages in sexual activity with some of them for money. That's prostitution. And if those are true allegations, that's wrong. And Jeffrey Epstein was an adult and should have known better. And I can't believe a wealthy, smart guy who's good looking, why doesn't he date women who are of age? Why doesn't he likes young women? Why doesn't he date young women who like dating older men and who are mature enough to know what they're doing and who can handle the reality of that environment? And it's a very difficult environment because it's I assume it's, well, it is a difficult environment. Any environment is difficult. Any relationship is difficult. But I imagine a young woman dating an older guy, and if she's not stable, if she doesn't have a career, it's even harder. So I encourage women to have careers and be smart about their love life and their professional life, especially their professional life, because love life, sometimes you're vulnerable. You fall in love, and you don't always choose who you fall in love with, although we should choose better. I haven't always chosen the best, but sometimes, and actually I've had very good relationships. I shouldn't complain. But we should keep our professional life, and that's what my mom always told me. She married young. She married at 15. Her mom married at 30. Didn't want her marrying young. Wanted her to have a career. And she's like, don't do what I did. Don't get married young. Have a career. Be smart. Be independent. Have your own life before you let a man come into your life. And I did. I got married at 30. And I had the cutest baby, and I was ready and stable, and I had a wonderful job where I could afford to take great care of my son, and I enjoyed very much his childhood. I enjoyed very much motherhood. I still enjoy motherhood. He loves living with his dad like a bachelor, and I worry about that, and I am trying to get my house so he can live with me and his dad. He's loving life right now. He's loving living with his dad. He's very happy. I'm more of a disciplinarian, so obviously he's happy living with his dad, but I want him living with me also so I can prepare him for life. But what I encourage you to do is to tell your kids not to accept money for sex, not to engage. Don't let them engage in any activity where they earn money and you don't know what they're doing. And if you're a vulnerable person, and I don't know if anyone who's vulnerable will get to watch this, but I was very vulnerable. I was homeless. And when they offered me to pay for a hotel for me to stay with someone, I said, no, you don't have to say yes. You can go to a shelter and find help. Someone will help you. Get a food cart. You won't go hungry. And it's very difficult. It was very difficult. I was very scared, and I was very worried. And I never in my wildest dreams or nightmares thought I would end up without a home. I never thought I would end up on the street without money, and it happened. And I was offered to engage in prostitution, and I said no. So don't engage in prostitution, don't engage in drug activity. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And Jeffrey Epstein should have known better. He's an adult, and if he did engage with minors, and I wonder if they were obliged or they were taken there. Was it voluntary? Because if it's voluntary, then where are the parents of these kids? Why are these parents not taking care of their kids and telling their kids not to accept money for sex and not to have sex with older men? And he should also say no, but if the kids went there voluntarily, then the kids need to learn better also. And the system needs to change. I'm still trying to work with nonprofits and see if we can work well together, where they can help me develop my business concept and I can help the people that they help by sharing my content, which is very useful, and it's great for kids. And so I'm still trying to work with them. And when I started working with them, I was just trying to earn from $7 per book to $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000. I was trying to earn as little as $7 to $30 to $40 to $500, whatever much I could earn honestly. And when I was earning zero money for 3 years, none of these non-for-profits were helpful. They were exploitative. And I watched an interview with the First Lady of Illinois, Diana Ronner, who was married to the governor at the time when I encountered so much pressure and so much harassment at work. Then came President Trump. But before that, um, she did an interview where she talked about education and educating kids and how wonderful. And she said we have to do it with humility. She was earning $90 million a year that year when she was the whole system that she was part of that was saying I should work with humility. I was earning zero money, and none of the not-for-profits, and she directs a not-for-profit in Illinois, and none of the not-for-profits helped me even earn $300 to pay the rent. So she was saying, oh, we should do it with humility because she didn't want me becoming a millionaire with my business. However, she was earning $90 million a year running a not-for-profit, and the 90 million, I don't know where it came from, if it was part of like her salary from the not-for-profit and also from her husband's businesses and when he was governor of Illinois. I don't know the specifics or the exact details of their finances. I do know that it was reported in the media and newspapers and their tax returns that they earn $90 million a year. Well, she was saying during an interview that people should be humble when they, work in education. And I was like, really? She's saying that I should be humble because I'm trying to earn enough money to buy a house and to have a better life. However, she's earning $90 million. So I don't agree with the system that they are managing the non-for-profits, that instead of helping me, were exploiting me to help people like them who don't need the help. Or if they need the help, then that type of help that they need shouldn't depend on exploiting vulnerable people. And what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to do is to teach people to have a better life and educate themselves and learn these types of strategies that I have utilized to be successful, and I hope to be very successful. And I have survived harassment. I have survived not being abused. I have survived not being used as a prostitute. And I must admit, at work we would joke, oh, like you walk the streets when you're a reporter, oh, the pillow talk, like it was a joke. It wasn't, we never engaged in prostitution at work. Never, never, never. However, our bosses did use us and used connections with politicians and the system to treat us like we were more than just reporters, and we were not. It was like a joke, but our personal life is supposed to be protected and respected, and it should not be used by the system in any way, shape, or form. And they tried doing that at Univision, and I fought back and I defended myself, and then I got threatened, and then I resigned and started my own business, and then the same system tried to exploit me further. And so I just want to tell people, you can fight back, you can defend yourself. Be encouraged to defend yourself and fight for what is right and for your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Have a great night.